Okay, there we go. So I've gone through your site and I have a couple suggestions. First and foremost, I'm hoping that this video is a good way to communicate my recommendations. If it's not, I can put it into written form. That takes longer, and this is less effort, but whichever is easiest for you, I'm happy to do it. Let's start off with the homepage. So first and foremost, for the desktop version, the graphics that are switching out behind here that are basically full page or full screen, so to speak, in this view, it's great because you can see the nav clearly, you can see the logo, things are good. In this view, not so much. The nav disappears, it becomes very hard to read, and same with the text, especially in this version, the logo gets kind of lost. Um, I really think that the better way to do this would be kind of how it's done on mobile. So if I were to just drop this width to say 375, um, something to approximate a mobile version, or maybe 500. Actually, yeah, 375 is fine. Um, 767, actually 676. How the nav is blocked off from the animated picture behind it is much better here. Now, granted, this is a hamburger menu, so your nav appears here, so it's not obscured or anything like that. It would be better to do this kind of treatment in the desktop version such that you have a clear demarcation right around here and above where your navigation isn't obscured or uh, visually cluttered by graphics behind it. The other thing for this initial state of the homepage is um, your Book Now gift certificates buttons. It's great that you have Book Now in the primary nav. Great place to put it. The fact that it shifts with the graphics down here is a little odd. Now, it can call attention to it, but it is still a little odd. The other thing that I want to call attention to at this point is what's called contrast ratio. Now, let's get it to with web accessibility, there exists something called contrast ratio, and it's essentially the ratio of a foreground text element to a background color element. So for example, this white on yellow or marigold, I'm not sure which color it is, but this white on marigold is low on the contrast ratio. In fact, if we were to run it through, say, something like this, where I picked up those color values using Photoshop. Basically, this is your marigold, and so the background color being marigold, and then the foreground color being white. Normally, this just like with normal text, it fails this web content accessibility guideline uh, for contrast ratio. So if I were to do something like say, you know, obviously gray is going to drop it. You're going to see this contrast ratio change, and then um, doesn't have to be black, but notice as I'm changing these and the text in the box is changing compared to the background marigold color, I'm starting to pass more of these metrics on the left here. So AA is great, AAA is excellent, like all around. So even though it can be subtle and easier on the eyes, this this version, it can be difficult for those who are challenged with visual, um, challenged visually. Also, a lot of generally older people. Um, in general, anybody who has sight issues or vision issues would have trouble kind of discerning what this text is right off the bat. Now, if you were to change these to say, oops, not that. If you were to change these to, let me reload this. Let me inspect this. And I'm going to change this to 800. Change the color values and also the weight of it so that, there you go. So now you have something that stands out a lot more. Um, let's see, inspect, can I do that? I think I can. Um, and so see how those now stand out a lot more clearly as opposed to what it was before, where it's the white text. I'm just using black as an example for now. Now, the other thing is your getaway, stay, and relax text also gets kind of lost, especially in backgrounds like this. Some My primary recommendation would be to have it so that these are separate from your, either you choose images that allow this to stand out, like this image is safe, this this one's not so safe because it really gets lost in the tree leaves. And then I believe the next one is, this one gets lost in the boat. Um, and this one looks great. This one's really nice. I would either choose images that are going to allow this tagline to stand out, or move the tagline to elsewhere. And then also, I definitely would recommend making it so that the navigation up here is separate from the actual animation background, animated background. So those are some of my initial recommendations for the home screen. So let's move on. Um, Again, this will, even though it's subtle and easy on the eyes, it's going to be harder for a fair number of people to read and discern. And so the point is, you don't want to make it hard for people, or you don't want to make it difficult for people to discern what your text is that you're trying to tell them or communicate. So, um, yeah, so I would recommend doing like a black or like a dark gray, like a slate gray. Again, we can go to this kind of site to pick some colors or some shades of black or gray that will work well, and it can still look really good. So, um, moving on to the video, I have a separate video that I put together to illustrate why, some recommendations for this. I might as well just play it now, although it's not going to pick up in the recording. So I'll just point you to it separately. So I'll provide the link here, or via email. But I have some recommendations on this. Uh, yeah, so I have some recommendations on that. Scrolling down, there is a lot of text, and a lot of text is good. I get that you want to have search engine optimization. Pardon me. You want to have a fair amount of text on here to allow for search engines to pick up on this and also do what's called SEO, um, or search engine optimization. So the fact that you have the read more button is good, but I would suggest that you actually do just a paragraph, like maybe this first paragraph, to read more, and then the read more should actually now it goes to this separate read more page, but I don't think that's actually needed. What you could do is you could have it so that we go back to previous page and notice how my buttons are white on yellow again. That's just because the change that I made was not permanent. So let's scroll back down to here. You could have read more here, and doesn't have to be a competing call to action. Well, when I say call to action, what I mean is the book now button, for example, is a call to action. We call it a CTA. The read more right now, the way it's formatted is a CTA or call to action. If I scroll up and my book now and gift certificate buttons are CTAs or calls to action. So you don't want to have too many competing calls to action on your page or on any screen. So like right now, if we were to change this text to black, and just leave it as book now, um, uh, you know, have that be the primary call to action on this page or any screen, was probably going to be your book now button. And then we can decide what a secondary styling of button would be um, to treat things like read more, or even in this case, read more can be an underlined text link that just expands in line. There's not necessarily a reason to have an additional page unless you're trying to do SEO rankings for that home, like when you click here, home more. Like this text can actually just live on the previous screen. So, um, anyway, so moving on. Also, another thing that I would highly recommend is right now that you have your header as translucent, which can be a nice visual effect, but it can also, again, be unnecessary. Also, the text behind here doesn't really serve a purpose when it's behind a nav. So I would recommend, again, making this a solid color, of color that's um, not too stark, but also just kind of, even if it were this color gray without the translucency, it would be perfect. So what you would see here, kind of, not the text area, but just that color, and then nothing showing through from behind. And I noticed also now that there's a background pattern on the page, this houndstooth, I don't know what you call it, but zigzag. So anyway, that's not a big deal. But moving on to our features, again, you will want to explore what this darker color should be. Like the marigold is great. It's a nice color, but you really want to have it so that it's the color of like your primary CTA, like your primary call to action, like what you want people to click on, as opposed to say your header or subheader text color. Um, and then also the iconography here is cute, but you may want to have it be darker because again, it's a low color contrast or low contrast ratio. Also, I would recommend, um, since you have three of these right here, that's it's actually fine readability wise and scannability wise. If you were to have more, which I actually might recommend, because I know that you have more offerings that you go into detail on another page, I would recommend you can keep the icons, but listing these out like icon, uh, um, feature name, and then feature description, and then icon, feature name, feature description, and have it so that it's more easily scannable. And also, because when you have more than three and you start putting these into a grid, like a 3x2 grid where you have like six of them, it'll become more distracting and less easy to read or digest, so to speak. Um, Also, with the testimonials, the motion that you have here can be distracting. I'm going for more like the accessibility angle here because a lot of things accessibility wise, guideline wise in the web or on the web do lend themselves to good layout. Not that this isn't a good layout, it's just that um, these scroll by really fast, and I know that you can drag them um, kind of in a way I'm trying to, but there is that kind of automated motion that takes place, and you have to do it a certain. Oh, maybe not. Okay, no, I guess you can't. Oh, okay. So these controls apparently show up once I've tried to interact with this, or is it? I'm not sure why they didn't show up before. Let me refresh the page real quick. So, okay, okay, now they show up, and the problem is that these controls obscure the text here. Again, you may want to just have them be static. I mean, it's okay to have four or five testimonials, uh, just in a row right here. Um, or maybe you have it so that there's, um, hmm. Yeah, I think having them in just in a row would be, or sorry, in a list would be fine. Having this extra motion here or this extra interaction here doesn't really offer you or the user that much more value per se. Um, it's those what we call it. I guess this is what you call a carousel. They're nice in that you can fit more content on a page without showing it all at once, but to really kind of digest and consume the content, if somebody's really like just reading all the way through this, it makes it a little more difficult, and it really does a disservice to um, kind of have different ways of like clicking through carousels or not being able to show them all at the same time. So it used to be that like back in my day, it used to be that it mattered most importantly what was above the fold. Like for example, when you first load a web page, what's above the fold is what you see in your browser window. Like this is what we see. This is fine. This is great because it's like we have the calls to action that we want. We have clear navigation, although it's obscured. But it used to be that you wouldn't necessarily want to have content like have to make people scroll for content. But in this kind of in this day and age, it's much more widely accepted, and it's much more appropriate to have a lot of some homepages, some websites for super big names even will have 20 screens that you scroll through literally from top to bottom. And I'm not saying do that, but it's like the days of having to shoehorn content into a carousel like this are kind of over. Also, just kind of highlight the difference between the uh, affordance or the buttons here, how they're placed in the middle of the content versus down here, they're placed above the content. Um, it's like I get that they're trying not to obscure by they, I mean, whomever put this together for you, maybe it's you. Um, Either way, it's like it's just a slightly different, these buttons are grouped together, whereas here they're apart. So it's just one more thing that you're having to make the user think about how to interact with this content that you have. Now, in the case of a image gallery or like a, something like this, having a carousel is great because it's hard to present a lot of images on a page without just having it be look like, a bunch of thumbnails or, um, you know, images that take up the entire screen and then, you're having to scroll through them. So, um, one thing I would recommend for this, okay, on the docs. So, uh, is instead of having it so that it just zooms in slightly and just labels what it is, you could just have the captions available immediately so that person doesn't have to click to figure out what happens when I click. So have the description available immediately. You can just have the how it kind of fades to back, it does this translucent layer. You could have just on the gazebo and then just like the lower 1/5 or 1/6 of the image be that label, and then the rest of it be as vibrant as it is, like in this state. So this state is like the default state. You click on it, and then it shows this translucent layer with the description. Why not just have it so that it's this level of vibrancy, and you have the label on it on anyway as a default without having to click, and then same with all three of these, or any number of images. And then when you click on it, the expected behavior would be to have it actually open up in a layer like a light box, what they call a light box or an overlay, where it would show the full image, and it would give the user a lot more kind of a reward for clicking it, so to speak. Like um, in this case, um, sorry, I was getting distracted by an effect. Um, in this case, it's like I don't get much reward for clicking it. I'm expecting that if I click on it, it'll show the full like panoramic version of the photo rather than just a slightly enlarged or zoomed in version with a label. So that's my suggestion for that session. Frequently asked questions. So on this, again, more FAQs, you would want to have, the standard CTA, or it could just be a secondary CTA link. So it wouldn't necessarily be the yellow with black text if that's what you go with. It would be something like maybe a button that has a border, like a stroke around it, like black or whatever color you decide, um, and then the text inside it. So it looks like a button, but it's not taking up as much what's called visual weight or visual priority as your primary CTAs, which are like the book now and get gift certificates. So um, with the FAQ, I think it's great that you have a few here. Um, if you hit more, it goes to this page. I don't like I'm not a fan of, I mean, these pictures are nice. It's great to have content that's visual, but really when people are looking for FAQs, they're really, they expect to find a lot of content. So you have a lot of content here, which is great. Um, the one problem that I do have with this, or that I would recommend changing, is that you can't, you have to click into each one. It makes it more difficult to just kind of, sometimes people will just want to read through like question by question, like what's the response to each question? What are all the questions? So I would recommend having it so that you have all your, the list of your questions at the very top so that when you click on one, it would go down to, um, let's see, how do I describe this? Um, okay, so say, let's see if I reduce this width. Oh, okay. Well, that's something you definitely don't want to do on the mobile version is, or tablet version, have it so that you have all your pictures and it's like, okay, where's the FAQ? Um, you want to have it so that all your content is viewable at the same time without having to click into each one of these questions. Um, because when you click into one, it closes another. And so it's like you're making people click unnecessarily. And then also, yeah, there's no reason to have this kind of hidden, there's no reason to hide the answers to these each of these questions. The other thing that I would recommend is there's instances that I noticed where you have, please click the book now or reservations button on our website. Well, instead of having forcing the user to find that book now or reservation button, like in this example, like if we're looking at like say we're looking at our mobile phone, um, you know, it's like why not just provide this as a hyperlink to this, which is what the book now button does. Um, that way you're not telling the user, hey, click, you know, go find the book now button and then click it. Versus what you do now here is just make this a hyperlink and have it so that it automatically takes the user to this page, just in a new window as the book now button currently does, up in the nav. Now, when you're looking at it on desktop, it's not as big of a deal because the um, the the book now button is clear. It's like always visible, so that's not an issue. But really, you just want to make it so that as they're reading things in context, they don't even have to like think or like move their eyes to where the book now button is in the nav. They can just click the link here. So that's what I would recommend for. And then same with how do I make a special request? Please contact us with your special request. Well, you have a contact us page. Um, so if we open that up, we have this, or you have this. So that's great. But instead of having to make the person, please contact us with your special request, um, and then they're like, well, where do I find the contact button? Or like, how do I find that page? So they scan through the nav and they see, oh, contact. So they click it and then that's great. But you could just hyperlink this text right here. Contact us. Wait, is that oh, never mind. I didn't, okay, let me see if okay, so my apologies. So contact us is a hyperlink already, but it doesn't look like it's a hyperlink, which is it's you shouldn't have to make users shouldn't have to like kind of hover over your content to figure out what's clickable and what's not. So I would really, even though some people will argue against underline for a hyperlink, an underline makes it really easy to tell when you're scanning a body of content or body of text, uh, what's clickable and what's not. Making it in a slightly different color, like I wouldn't recommend, first and foremost, make it look like a hyperlink, have an underline with it. Secondly, don't have your hyperlink colors be this marigold color because when you're having body uh, text links, like links, hyperlinks within your body text, at this, this kind of font face, style, size, all that stuff, it doesn't stand out. In fact, this really fails the um, accessibility contrast uh, test. Um, and you just don't want to have it so that it's like kind of disappears from view. Another way to kind of think about that is, or another way to look at it is, if you look at this screen right now and you squint your eyes, I know it sounds ridiculous, but squint your eyes so that everything's blurry. You don't see anything that, like, you can't read the text, but you're just like, what pops out at you? What should pop out at you is the Book Now button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen with the in the navigation. But what disappears from view is that Contact Us link inside the body text inside this FAQ, because you can see that there's text that, again, squinting your eyes, it says, you know that it says please, and then there's something, and then it's, with your special request, contact us disappears. So that's a good way to kind of just do a quick gut check as to if something is going to stand out on a page when you want it to, or if it just completely disappears when you're not intending it, when you're not even intending for that to happen. So, um, some other comments that I had written down for your FAQ text, and this will be easier to do, I think, if you were to expand the width of this to be, and that's the other thing, sorry, I don't know if I outlined or highlighted this. I would say you want to recommend or provide more than just 50% of your page width to FAQs. Again, these pictures are nice. Um, I would say you really want to, at this point, provide as much room for the FAQs as possible. Um, and then also, you may want to introduce some, yeah, okay, sorry. And then going back to your previous point, click the book now or reservation button, then click gift certificates. Why not just make these hyperlinkable or clickable? And again, back to the width of the FAQs, you want to make sure that even though there's going to be more white space, what people call white space in the industry, um, you know, it's okay to have it so that an FAQ only has one sentence sometimes, which, like, you know, sometimes they do. Other times when you have like a lot of text like this, that's okay too. It's okay to have what's called white space in your content, in that, one uh, FAQ might have just something like this. Another one might have something like this. So, um, but providing more width to your FAQs will be greatly helpful for readability, scannability, and also not making people click into each one and then force closing the other ones, when they click on it. So, contact us. I think it's great that you provide this at the bottom. You um, One could argue that it could be a secondary button, but at the same time, having it be a primary button, in this case, it's okay to have two CTAs that are like calls to action that are the same, like, kind of visual weight. In the case where it's like with FAQs, if they get to the end and they do have questions, you probably do really want to promote the contact us feature. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but I think this is okay here. The contrast ratio, again, that's the biggest thing that I'm gonna harp on um, throughout this entire experience. So reservations takes you to the external site, which is good. Cabins. So these One, you've done a tremendous job on the resort. I mean, I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I mean, so kudos to you. These are awesome that you have all these options. Scannability wise, it's hard to kind of compare them all when they're in a grid like this. Um, One thing that I'm going to show you, publicstorage.com. Oops, not spelled that way, but it redirects. Is Let me do. Oops, not view source. Um, okay. So public storage site that I worked on like years ago, back in 2007, totally dating myself, 2007, 2008, Find Storage. So it used to be that they had all their results um, And I think they might have reverted back to that. Please tell me no. Um, oh gosh. Yeah. Okay. Well, okay, so this is a different I'm gonna edit this part out. So, let's go back to um, this. So, what I would recommend is have it so that your options are like you have this cabin one, cabin two, and then cabin A, B, C. And I understand that there's some accessibility things that the features that you designed in mind with some respect to, I forget if they're the numbered cabins or the lettered cabins. But anyway, what I would do is I would recommend putting these in a list. So it's like it's okay to have like little thumbnail, original midsize bedroom one, and then details, uh, and then either something that expands in line to show those details or takes you to a new page. I believe in this case it takes you, yeah, to cabin size. Yeah. So there's some ways we can optimize that content, but I think for this view initially, having them as a grid is harder to kind of parse or um, kind of, yeah, it's harder to parse out what the kind of hard to compare all of them. Whereas if you have them in kind of a list, uh, I don't want to say do it like a spreadsheet, but it literally is like it's what they call a data grid, um, where you can more easily view the options and you can compare them by like, maybe you have the square footage for each one as a column, and then you have um, some other things, some other features, uh, you know, as columns and whatnot. But I'm not sure how to lay this out yet, but I can look at it a little bit more. But I think that it would be beneficial to lay this out differently rather than just a grid. I guess another way to look at it would be, um, let me do an example on my, um, one second. Okay, just pulling up something that would be, so, um, say this is a bad, not the greatest example, but looking at something from an icon view or a grid perspective versus like a list. Sometimes it's just easier to look at things in a list versus having to scan things, left to right, then down, left to right, then down, left to right, then down, and whatnot. So, um, uh, yeah. So that's my recommendation for that page. Um, history. You can also put your mouse, let's see, Mr. Color will play automatically. Wow, really takes me back. Um, I know this is, I don't want to take away from I think this is probably a module that you were able to integrate uh, to more easily, see, just do like an album, and then there's definitely some accessibility things that could be uh, implemented to improve the usability of this. Like for instance, I think okay, I can click and drag. Um, but I think it's great that you have like kind of a pictorial history. Um, I thought you had some other. In fact, okay, that's weird. Okay, what's weird now is my scroll is not working on my um, mouse, so it's like I have to scroll. But I don't think that's it's an artifact of the page. I think it's just a my browser right now. So, yes. Okay, I think what it was is the cabins. Oh, okay. I didn't realize you had a cabin feature comparison. And that's great that you have this. In fact, it's funny because you and I do spreadsheets very similarly, if this is you that did this. Um, there's a way to kind of do a marriage between this informational layout, which I think is great that you provide, and yet being able to provide a view that includes some pictures, because this can be a little dry right here, this view. So there's a way that can be done to kind of treat these so that you can not only have a visual way to represent these, like, you have great visuals here, but also providing the information that you have here, which is great. Um, like you have square footage and things like that, which is awesome. Um, so yeah, I think combining these two would be great. And then that way you wouldn't have to have a separate PDF. Um, and you could do so in a usable way. So, um, personal note accessibility. I found this to be awesome when I was reading it. I think it's great that you have taken such uh, a well thought out approach to accessibility, doing what you can where you can, and I think that this having this is great. I think it's an awesome, adds a lot of personality. Well, adds a lot of personableness to it. Shows a lot of thought. Um, I don't have much to recommend on the content for this. Um, yeah, I think anybody that lands here that's interested in it will actually read it. I mean, I know I did. Um, so um, that's pretty much it. I really like how the logo looks on black. So I think you would be doing yourself better by having this header navigation be in black, or, because it would mirror the footer here. Um, and here, like, see how the white on the black stands out much better? Like, just your links are very clear. Um, the only thing that's a little unclear is your, um, let's see, that's for reservation, that's for Google Maps. Okay, that's for Facebook, social media, Yelp, TripAdvisor. I would recommend having these be icons with their labels, because otherwise I have to hover over each one to figure out what it is. I mean, I can guess that that's Facebook, obviously, unless I'm well versed in travel sites. I wouldn't necessarily know that that's TripAdvisor, but I don't travel much, so I don't know what. Okay, trips with pets, that's cool. Um, Website, okay, by Wannabe Web. Okay, that star, I wouldn't have any idea that that's what that was. So it just, it'd be helpful to have icons. Wherever you have icons, it's useful to have labels as well. Otherwise, you get into what's called mystery meat navigation or chef surprise. You don't know what you're going to get. Um, it's like, because icons can be so, unless it's like a very distinct, like for instance, this pin and the Facebook icon are two icons that are kind of universally recognized. Another one might be like Instagram or Snapchat or things like that, but still, it's good to, instead of leaving the user trying to figure out what it is or having to hover over something just to get this little help text or this little tooltip or hint, it's better to just kind of just tell them with a label. And if that means that, this takes up more room instead of just like it being just a nice little, 4x2 grid of icons, so be it. I mean, your footer is a good height as it is. It's okay to have a tall footer and not have to, abbreviate things or hide elements that should be pretty obvious anyway or that you should be telling your users anyway with the label. So, um, yeah, that's pretty much it. For the mobile version, I think that the let's see, hold on. I really like it on a black, but I mean, that's just me. I mean, it looks good on a white too, the logo. That's what I was noticing that this is on a white background. Um, the 5 points gets a little lost because it is in that marigold. Now, I'm not sure if that's a color that you've chosen for your brand or what kind of branding colors you have in place, if any, or if it's just something that the company or whomever did this site for you, what they recommended. Um, I mean, it is easy on the eyes, but then again, it's like it does have some contrast ratio issues, and I think you're doing yourself a disservice, especially when it's on white. If it's on black, like how it is down here, it looks great. It actually stands out really well. In fact, if we go to this uh, web accessibility, I think it's right here. If we pick, so say the background is uh, black, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, so black, and then the foreground is this. I mean, you pass all your accessibility, um, you know, uh, contrast ratios really well with this. So, this marigold on black color is awesome for the footer. And I would recommend that you look at embracing that for your top navigation or your primary navigation bar as well, and not have it be that translucent gray that you currently have. Um, especially when there's, oh, sorry, in this case white, but if it's desktop site like this, yeah, you're doing yourself a disservice with this. So yeah, not to beat a dead horse, but those are my recommendations. This is pretty much, except for one flub. This is just raw, unedited feedback based on my notes that I had taken and that I meant to get back to you sooner. So hopefully this is helpful. If you want it in a different format, I'm happy to provide it in a different format, but oops, hopefully this helps. Thank you. Bye.